Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert Rich Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, The Trigger, Rich Bontrager.
Welcome to Sunday Night Rock the Stage. We're back once again. The Trigger, Rich Bontrager, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday night, right here, Rock the Stage Show. Tonight, we're going to get into a tougher one. It is going to be a tougher one. Get a tissue box in case you need to have it with us here tonight, because we are into one of the things that we all face and we all struggle with. And I'm talking about depression, anxiety, the fear of being too vulnerable sometimes winds into this and causes some of this sometimes. And we feel at risk when we get in these states, don't we? We really do. Anxiety and depression often crash people and leaders at the most inopportune time. They don't see it coming. They don't know where it came from. And boom, things explode. The question is not if you're going to have one of these incidents. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And how do you get back in to the game and rebuild and start over again with grace, with personality, with everything that you have at you? How do you overcome this? Today, my guest is the powerful insights and the resilience and learning to rebuild a life, an amazing new life, not just any life, but an amazing life. Our guest today is no stranger to resilience, transformation, and the power of storytelling. Jodi Orgill Brown is an award-winning speaker, author, and she's an expert, and when I love this phrase, antifragility, helping individuals and leaders not just bounce back from the challenges of life, but grow stronger and because of them, be greater. She's the author of the new book called Depression Fighter, which we'll explore a little bit. And Jodi has faced an enormous personal trials herself, including a life-altering brain tumor and facial paralysis. Yet she has turned her experiences into a mission to help others press forward and fight on. And let's give a great Rock the Stage welcome, and let's bring in Jodi Orgill Brown. Great to see you.
So glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, there's a lot to dig into here, and we've got maybe 40 minutes. So we're going to jump into it, because the more I look and learned about you, amazing what you've gone through, and yet how you stepped in. Now, let me just start there. Did you ever think, going through the brain tumor, the paralysis, all the rehab, did you ever think you would be out here leading like the rock star you are?
Oh, I love that question. I did not foresee it at the time. However, there was a point in time when I was in the hospital where I realized I'd been in the hospital almost 5 weeks. And there came a point in time where I realized I'm going to make it. I am going to make it through this. I'm actually going to go home. I'm going to survive. And I remember having a thought in my mind of what's to come of all of this. And in my mind, I said a silent prayer of, what is all of this for? And whatever you want me to do with this second chance at life, I promise I'll try and do it.
Wow.
And I did not have a clue at the time of what that meant or what I was getting myself into, but I have tried very hard to stay true to that promise.
Look in the rearview mirror for a second. How does it feel to actually say that out loud and know where you're at now?
It shows me that there was purpose to it, that there is purpose to our pain. And we may not be able to see it or know it in the moment that it is occurring, but there is a reason, and we can become better. All things can come together for our good, even the worst of circumstances. I truly, truly believe that, and that has absolutely been evident in my life over and over again.
Now, you had a brain tumor, but for those that do not know, you did not have a brain tumor. You had a brain tumor. This was the largest. Explain it, because it sounds like it was massive.
Okay, so the reality is it's not that it was massive. It's that it was the location that was the problem. The way that the doctor explained it to me is he said, Mrs. Brown, in the brain, it's all about location, location, location. I mean, he could have been selling a piece of property, right? The way he was talking. Um, and I'm sorry to say, yours is in a very bad location. And so it's not that the tumor was massive, it's that the tumor took up all of the space where it was. So there's only a small amount of space between the end of your ear canal and your brain stem. And mine literally was between a rock, the end of your ear canal is a bone, and my brain stem. And so it started to press on all of the nerves and the brain stem and causing me many, many issues. And it took a great deal of time to diagnose because many of the what I now know as to be symptoms are also things that anyone can face in normal life. You know, dizzy spells. Oh, you might have an ear infection. Maybe you had a headache that caused something. So a lot of the things that initially I faced were not cause for concern until they started building on top of each other, and one more, another trip to the doctor, trip to the doctor. After 4 trips to the doctor in 8 months, I finally just said, something is really wrong and we have to figure it out. And thank goodness the doctor said, okay, if you feel that way, and I absolutely do. And we started, I really started advocating for myself. And that was when the process started. And we started the process of going through the tests and figuring out what it wasn't. And then as soon as I had an MRI, it was much clearer of what it was that we were dealing with.
So what's it like to go through that period where poking and prodding, studying lab, phone call results, go back in, and they say, we still don't know, come back again? What's it like to be stuck in that feeling of, I know something's wrong, please find it. You're scared to find out. You want to find out. What goes through your mind during that cycle?
I think what really woke me up was when my husband came home from work one day and asked how I was doing. And I had to admit that I was not doing well, that I was not very functional. At this point in time, I could barely walk down a hall without holding on to the banister because I was so off balance. And he looked at me and said, Jodi, something is wrong with you. And I know you've been to the doctor, but you have got to go back again.
Wow.
And he doesn't speak to me with that kind of a voice. And so at first it was a little unnerving.
Yeah.
And then I realized why. And it was because of concern. And so as we went back to the doctor and started doing all of the tests, and they're calling back, oh, your blood work looks great. You're fine. And I am not fine. I'm not fine. And I finally had to say, you know, I'm not okay. You have to ask the doctor, what is the next step? What is the next step? And she came back on a few minutes later. Well, the next step is an MRI of your brain. And that was a pretty traumatic experience in and of itself. I went in, they scheduled an appointment for me. The appointment would be 3 weeks after the call that was made. And I was so bad, I thought, I cannot wait 3 more weeks just to have the test done. So I called the hospital and I said, I have an MRI scheduled for, for an MRI of my brain, but I can't wait 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Will you get me in any sooner? And the woman on the phone could hear probably the desperation in my voice. And she said, just a minute. She came back on and said, if you will come at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, we will get you in before any of the patients arrive. And I said, okay, I'll take it. So I was there when there was no one else there, no one in the waiting room, barely someone there to check me in. But I went in and got in and did the first MRI. And then, okay, the doctor will call you in a couple of days. And I thought, this was just another step to ruling out another issue.
Right.
And I had not left the radiology department before that tech came and chased me down. And she said, because you're the first patient of the day, The radiologist was looking at your scans live as they came in. He's not sure, but he thinks he sees something. Would you be willing to do another one? And this time we'll give you some contrast IV.
Yep.
We'll give you dye in your IV, and we'll.
That's all fun stuff, by the way. If you haven't experienced that, folks, woo!
Such a great time. There's nothing like being locked in essentially the MRI tube, which feels like you're in a jackhammer machine, and they're saying stay absolutely still and don't move, and it's miserable.
Relax, don't move while all the sounds are going around.
Yes, relax, don't move. Would you like some music? And they put headphones on. I thought, this is a joke. You can't hear the music. But I was actually somewhat relieved because I thought, okay, they're going to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
And the tech actually broke all of the rules. So I'm not going to disclose who she was. But she said, come here, I'll show you. And she pulled me back into the room and she pulled up the scan on her computer and said, right here, this is the spot where he thinks he sees something.
Wow.
I had no idea what it meant to have a spot on your brain, but I was actually like, yes, like we're getting somewhere. There's a reason I've been feeling so terrible. Now we'll figure it out. We'll get it taken care of and I will go back to normal life. And during the MRI, that was how I felt. Like,
wow.
We're going to get to the bottom of this. We are going to get to the bottom of this. And then after another 45 minutes of jackhammer hell, the MRI table slowly moved out from inside the machine. And the tech came in and she unscrewed all of the, things holding me down, strapping me down to the table. And she helped me sit up and then she helped me stand up. And she looked at me and said, there is definitely something there. I want you to go home and call your doctor immediately. And good luck to you. And she threw her arms around me and gave me a hug. And I thought, okay, she knows something I do not know.
Yeah.
And she can't say it, but she knows the severity that I don't know.
Yeah.
And by this point in time, the hospital was in full swing because it had been a few hours. Yep. I left the radiology room where the dark and the silence, except for the jackhammer machine. And I walked out into the bright lit halls of the hospital. And it felt like I was on a race car track where everyone else was in fast motion, going quickly. And I was in slow motion.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know how to behave. And I don't know how I got to my car. I don't know how I got home. But I pulled into the garage. My husband popped his head out when he heard the garage door open. And he said, wow, you were gone a lot longer than I thought you were. Yeah. So glad that that's done. And I thought, how in the world do I say these words? What do I say?
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of the most difficult journey of my life. My dear, dear friend was the head of radiation oncology. And when my diagnosis started getting out there in the world, I walked in to his office. And this is a man who normally I describe him as he lives his life on a trampoline. Like he is bouncy and so full of life that you walk in and my thought was always like, okay, I got to get on the same frequency he is so that we can come drug at the right time. And that was my normal interaction. And this time I came in and he said, well, if it isn't my friend Jodi Brown, why don't you have a seat? And as he proceeded to talk to me and say, you're in for something hard. You're in for a battle. And I said, Paul, this is me. This is Jodi, the Conquer the World girl. You know me. You know I can do this. And he didn't crack a smile.
No.
He just said, Jodi, you just need to prepare yourself. This is going to be harder than you realize.
I'm interested in because you talk on this idea of being anti-fragile, which I love this idea. I really want to explore this because people don't understand what you just described in that moment with your dear friend. He is now treating you with kid gloves. He was treating you with so much love and respect, but at the same time, you're now fragile. And you and I are not A-type personality fragile people. I don't think you're that way by nature. So what's it like to realize you're fragile from their perspective?
There's part of you that wants to believe that you're still not fragile. There's that part of you that just wants to believe, yeah, but I'm the one. I'm going to be the fight. I'm the fighter. Like, if anyone can do this, it's me.
Yes.
And then there's that other side of you that starts to say, maybe there's more to this than I know.
Yes.
And what do I start to do so I can be prepared? And it felt like everything in life was out of my control, and I am a control person. And that is a very hard place to be. So I didn't realize then how little I actually had control of. But what we all know to be true is true, which is you can only control the things you can control. So you have to take control of the things you can.
Right.
And I did start to do that. I did start to put into place the things I could do. I made the phone calls. I got the help to come to my house. My mother actually, my family lived in Hawaii at the time. My mother came from Hawaii to the mainland, and she moved in with my family so she could help do caregiving for my kids.
Yes.
She could take me to doctor appointments. She could be my advocate. And then what we didn't know was that she was going to end up living at my house for the next 5 months while I went into the hospital and went through this whole experience. So, talk about being fragile. There's nothing like a conquer the world person being told, sorry, it's all out of your hands. There's nothing you can do, to just bring you to reality pretty quickly.
Well, and I found this on your YouTube channel. You phrased it so well, but you asked the question to yourself and to others. But when did the world stop seeing me and see a body in bed? As someone that's been there 3 times in his own life, those words jumped off the screen to me like, I remember the feeling. Describe that thought when you're reflecting on, now they don't see you. They don't see the strong mom, the strong woman. They see someone trapped in bed going downhill.
I got to a point where I wasn't even sure they saw a person at all. I thought I may as well be the CPR dummy that they're just practicing on, because the level of interaction and care dropped off so considerably, not by everyone, but by some people, when I became debilitated and after my surgeries, when I was not able to speak for myself and do the things in the ways that I had been able to before.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. And at one point in time, I had a woman who came into my room. She said, she didn't tell me her name. She just said that she was a CNA there to bathe me. And she proceeded to wheel me on a plastic mattress bed down the hall to a shower room. She took the gown from off of my body and threw it onto the floor, took off all of my underclothing, dropped them on the floor, grabbed the shower hose, and literally just started spraying me down like I was a car in a car wash.
Wow.
So I lay there completely bare, no towel, no covering. And I just felt every bit of dignity and humanity that I had spiraling down the drain with all of the cold water droplets that were dropping off of me and falling into the drain on the floor. And there was part of me that just felt like, if the people who are literally hired and paid to take care of me can't see my humanity anymore, maybe there's none left. Maybe there's not much of me left anymore.
We just did a whole show on medical compassion and the lack of medical compassion. you are tying into a show we just recently had. We dove into where's our medical doctors, our care, do not hurt, gone when you just describe what you've gone, because there's no compassion in there.
So now one of my favorite audiences, I love to go into healthcare facilities, into hospitals, into, clinics, into hospice, whoever is working with the patients and advocate for the patients. Because a lot of the people who end up in ICU don't ever get the chance to go back and speak for themselves and tell their stories.
No.
But I have that chance.
Yeah.
And I call them to the table, and sometimes I tell them exactly, you have great power. With every interaction is an opportunity to change a life. How you do your job matters.
Oh,
you can check the box and say, yes, I bathed a patient. And that can be an incredibly terrible experience, or it can be an uplifting and wonderful experience. And I had those as well, which is the thing that gave me the hope to keep going.
By the way, how many surgeries now? What's the surgery count?
I just had the 24, and we're in the process of scheduling number 25 right now.
Number 25. So let me ask you this, because when people hear resilience, they think, be the man, be the woman, tough it out. That's not what you talk about, though, right? You're not talking about toughing it out, being resilient. What are you talking about when you present and talk?
Most people think of resilience as bouncing back to as good as you were before. Why in the world would you want to go through something difficult and just go back to as good as you were before? So the way that I think of it, the concept of becoming anti-fragile, antifragility is a property of systems that increase your capability to thrive when you go through difficult things, when you have weaknesses, when your health is declining, when you're in financial trouble, when you've made mistakes, when you've screwed up. How can you use those things to improve, to get better, to grow stronger, instead of just trying to cover up for it or get back to as good as you were? And I am so passionate about that now, because that is the way forward. In fact, there was a study done over the course of 100 years that proves exactly this point. So in 1918, scientists were studying the strength of trees. And, you cut down trees for lumber, and they look at, what do they look at? They look at the rings of the trees. They look at the inside, and it shows everything from, the thickness of the rings tells you how strong it is, how much water they received, and also tells you the age of the tree. So they took all of this information to determine the strength of the trees. They replicated that study 100 years later in 2018. Well, by this point in time, the trees are grown in tree farms, and they're given the proper amount of light and the proper amount of water, and they're moved away from harmful, harsh conditions. And guess what they found?
They're weaker.
They're weaker.
Adversity helps make us stronger.
And some people would say, well, yeah, that's trees. But that's life. That's life. What are the times in your life that you learned the most from?
The nightmare, the battles, the hardship, and especially what the illustration you just highlight also goes to raising our children.
Oh,
don't raise them in a bubble. Let them get bumps and bruises and climb trees and fall on themselves and have their bike wheel fly off when they're high in the air and land on the handlebars. Let them go through all those things for the very reason you're talking about. They will come out stronger.
The way I put that is, we bubble wrap too many things in people in life today.
Yes, exactly.
What do you use bubble wrap for?
Fine china.
Fine china that you want to arrive undamaged when it gets shipped via UPS or put in a moving van. But when we start to bubble wrap people and situations, there is no bubble wrap that is going to do anyone any good when you face the realities of destroyed egos, broken down businesses, relationships that have failed. No amount of bubble wrapping is going to save those things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been bubble wrapped your whole life, when those things hit, you don't know how to handle it. So I think we gotta throw away the bubble wrap, except for the fine china. And we need to start teaching people the steps. What do you do? How do you become anti-fragile? How can you learn from these challenges so that you can actually grow better and stronger and be prepared for what's going to happen next? Because we may not have a pandemic in the same way we had last time, but sure as heck, something will hit in the future, and we need to be better prepared for it.
Well, I'll just conclude with this. I hate the commercial that says, here, you're a winner. We're all winners. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. It doesn't work that way. So great point. Wonderful. I'm going to go back to the middle of what you were going through. Your husband, you come to grips with it. What was depression like for you? How did it develop? Where did it, and how did it impact the family? Because super strong mom, wife, how did that whole depression cycle affect your immediate family?
I will be honest that depression did not hit immediately, because when I got out of the hospital, number one, I was alive. Yes, I had a ton of problems, but I was alive. And they believed at that point in time that my nerve damage was temporary. They originally said it'll be a few weeks, maybe a few months. And then as I would go back in for checkups and things still weren't working, the prognosis kept changing and kept changing and kept changing. And the days got harder, not easier, the longer I was home, because I had more and more to do for myself. You know, immediately you come home and you're a little bit bubble wrapped. The whole neighborhood is there. They're bringing your food. My mom was living with me, and I was fragile. And so I needed that help and I needed that care. And when that support system, I still had a great support system, but when some of the day-to-day help started to leave and I wasn't getting better yet, that's when things really started to hit. And as I watched people come into my house and fold my laundry, as I was laying on the couch watching them, watching someone fold your underwear is about the most humiliating thing, outside of having someone bathe you that doesn't give a darn. And I literally thought to myself, if I can't do even the most basic things for myself and my family, why am I still here? What is my purpose and what is the point?
What did your husband do? How do you react to all that?
You know, I got to hand it to my husband. He is a rock. He was the steady force in all of this. And to this day, facial paralysis for 15 years, he has never made so much as a negative comment about the effects on me and my face and my looks. And yet I know many people who lost their relationships, lost their marriages, people left. My personality changed, my moods changed. Brain trauma affects so many parts of your body. And it wasn't just the face, it was all of my functionality. And so he was the rock that helped me keep going. And going to therapy helped me. I had therapists. Sometimes they were therapists for my physical body, but they also let me into the fact that, hey, this isn't just a physical body thing. My facial therapist, did you know there were facial therapists?
I never knew there were. No.
I would leave facial therapy having felt like I had run a marathon with my face. Like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted from trying to do these little tiny incremental movements. And she looked at me and she said, you have to mourn what you have lost, or you will never be able to appreciate the life that you still have.
That's another quote I caught on your YouTube channel. And that's a powerful, you have to mourn the loss to deal with the new reality.
Yes. You almost as though a death of one person and the birth of a new person. And I think about that now, and I have talked to my husband about it. And I cannot imagine from his perspective. But I heard him, when we were having conversations, say, "You are not the same person that I married." Mm. And yet there is nothing that either of us could do about that.
So
And
adapt,
so
change, learn together, whatever.
had to change, had to learn together, had to figure things out in new ways. He is still ever the engineer, ever the fixer, always trying to come up with solutions. And sometimes I'm like, enough. I don't.
Did you ever just say, shut up, stop?
I definitely said stop. Like, I don't want you to try and fix this. Like, there are some things I either need to fix on my own or I just need to accept.
Have you gotten to the point where you're able to laugh and joke about it, and your family can laugh and joke and do it in a way that's, it's not jabbing, it's not painful, but now there's been time and they understand more? Or is there that ability to go,
oh yes, we wouldn't have made it
funny
through 15 years without that ability. In fact, that was one of the first things we put into place, because our children were little. They were ages 2 to 10.
Oh,
2 to 10. So you can't put the heaviness and the seriousness of that on them.
no.
You don't want them to understand. The older ones heard the quiet conversations that were happening in the rooms and on the phones. The younger ones, not so much. And I think it was a little bit easier for them to handle. The one who handled it the best was 4 years old at the time. And he had no filter. He was old enough to know that something was wrong with mommy, but not old enough to be as worried as the big kids were.
Yep.
And so he just saw things for the way they were. And he went into like, Mom, what is wrong with your eye? Like, at the time, my face was newly paralyzed. And my eye was big and wide open. It wouldn't close at all. And he's like, what is going on with your eye? It will not close. Next time I come visit, do you want me to bring some tape so that maybe we could tape your eye shut? Like, he just was concerned for me and wanted to help.
That's awesome.
I had 3 brain surgeries during the process that I was hospitalized, and they had to, anytime that they take something out of your brain, they have to put something in to fill it in. They can't leave a hole in your head.
Wow.
So what they do is they take fat from somewhere else in your body. Mm-hmm. And so for me, they harvested some fat from my stomach, and then they cut some out from my thighs, and they filled in the holes in my brain with fat head. So you can imagine the jokes, Mom, fat head mom, people volunteering to be fat donors for me. When I had staples all over, oh, metalhead, just the names that we came up with, the way that we dealt with it, especially with the young ones in our family, we had to find a way to make it light. So the heaviness of the reality didn't settle in on them as much, which is a little ironic because we would get them out the door, and that's when I would then have my breakdowns.
Oh, yes.
That's when the real reality would set in, was when they were out the door to school.
Yep.
And I was still a mess, and I was alone and trying to deal with my new life, my changed body. And those are the hours that I would spend curled up under a blanket or in the corner or hiding from the world because I did not know how to move forward.
Well, Jodi, your whole experience now, you put into a book, Depression Fighter. And this whole idea is that you want people to be ready for it. Like we said way back at the beginning, it's not if something's going to happen. It will happen. How can you prepare to be a fighter and not get wrapped up? What's this book really all about?
Depression, whether it lasts a day or a month or a year, is going to hit every single person, all of the 8 billion of us, because we're human, because something is going to happen. It may not be an actual medical diagnosis, but something is going to happen. And so my book, if you can see, it's press. So the highlighted words are press on. So it's press on, fighter. Yes, it's depression fighter, but it's press on. Press on and create your personalized path to resilience through adversity. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, whether it's a failed relationship, financial struggles, a health or medical condition, there are solutions, and those obstacles are not roadblocks. It's just simply an opportunity for you to find a new path to get where you were going.
Your QR code is up here. We want people to go check out, but what else are we going to learn about Jodi when they hit the QR code and jump to your page there?
When they jump to my LinkedIn page, they will find out more about what I do for a living, which is that I speak to organizations. I help them become more anti-fragile. I help them build systems into their lives. I also help them become better speakers. I help people who are up and coming leaders prepare themselves to take on those roles. I'm passionate about storytelling. I was fortunate enough to actually win a National Speakers Association storytelling competition. And that one small thing turned out to not be a small thing at all, but it has opened many, many doors. And so I also help companies find the right stories to tell, the ones that are going to resonate, that are going to help people understand why they do what they do, why they're passionate, how they can help their customers. And my personal motto is that every interaction is an opportunity to change a life. And so you will see from everything that I post, from anything that shows up on my YouTube channel, you will see that interpersonal interactions and the way we have these conversations with each other is one of the most important things to me, because this is where we have the greatest impact.
So I've got two final questions for you today. And again, you talk about your amazing husband, your family, the friends that rolls around you. I'm guessing faith in God probably helped you a little bit. Listening to your story, watching your videos, your faith was a part of that anti-anxiety, anti-depression, anti-checkout from it all. How much did that help you?
I know 100% without a doubt that I would not be here without faith in God. And not just my faith in God, because there was a point in time where I was questioning everything when all of this hit. And yet the people around me not only stayed strong for me, but they started enlisting the help of everyone else. Please, put Jodi on your prayer lists. Include her in thoughts and prayers and fasting and anything. Like my dad is a former CEO and has 11,000 contacts in his cell phone. And when I was diagnosed, the first thing he did was start sending out that SOS. Started saying, hey, we need help. We need it in the form of prayers, if you have resources, if you have doctors. And there was a point in time where I was in the hospital, again, realizing I was going to survive. And the very distinct thought came to me that it was not my faith that kept me alive, but it was so God could show all of these other people that miracles still happen. And that he is still a God of miracles, an unchanging God. And that if we have the faith, we can make those things happen. And that was humbling, because he pretty much told me it wasn't because of me that he kept me going. It was because of them. So now I refer to all of the people who support me as my pack of angels.
So Jodi, we've just amazing story from brain tumor, paralysis, rebuilding your life, so many different things. But looking back at the tree, if we were to take a chainsaw and cut you down, are you stronger today than you were before?
There are parts of my physical body that may be weaker. But as a person, as a spirit, as a soul, I am so much stronger. And I'm strong enough that I have plenty to give back, even on my hardest days. Sometimes my hardest days are my best days, because it's a remembrance of how far I've come and that I am so much stronger. 100%. If you looked at the rings inside of Jodi, there are more of them, and they are thicker, they are stronger, and they are ready to keep moving forward.
Jodi, Wonderful having you on the show tonight. I hope you've had a great time. Thank you for being on Rock the Stage tonight.
Thank you for allowing me to be with you to rock the stage, and just to remind everyone that what you do matters and every interaction can change a life.
Jodi Orgill Brown. Remember the name? Again, LinkedIn. You got the free download. Rewatch this episode because there's so many cool things that you want to take home and make sure you don't miss out on. And again, if you're going through a painful situation, we don't want to make light of it, because Jodi and I have both been through extremely difficult situations in our life. We're happy to share them, but we also know the real pain and the battle of depression, that anxiety that comes with it, and that point of feeling fragile. It's one of the most hardest things to face, but hang in there. You can do it. And I'm sure, like Jodi, surround yourself with the best people in the world, and we hope and pray you get through it. This has been a very special show tonight. This has been deep meat, deep stuff. We told you at the beginning, it might be a little bit tough. Get the tissue box. Thanks for being with us tonight on Rock the Stage Show. We're back every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for another edition of Rock the Stage Show. You never know who's going to show up on this stage. It's always fun. It's always unscripted. And it's some of the best of the best. We'll see you next week here, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for Rock the Stage Show.